Hi everyone, bienvenue. Welcome and thank you everyone for coming to the 102nd event of Disrupting Disruptions, the Feminist and Accessible Publishing, Communications, and Tech Speaker and Workshop Series. I'm Dr. Alex Ketchum, and I'm a professor of feminist and social justice studies at McGill and the organizer of this series. The Feminist and Accessible Publishing, Communications, and Tech Speaker and Workshop Series seeks to bring together scholars, creators, and people in industry working at the intersections of digital humanities, computer science, feminist studies, disability studies, communication studies, LGBTQ studies, history, and critical race theory. I'm so excited to welcome you all. So some notes on accessibility. As is the case with all of our hybrid and virtual events, we have cart captioning in English, tonight provided by our captioner, Michelle. You can turn on your captions at the bottom of your screen. Tonight, we have a Q&A option available, so throughout the event, you may type your questions into the question and answer box. There will be some time during the second part of the event for our amazing speakers to answer them. We can't guarantee that every question will be answered, but we are grateful for the discussion that you generate. We have sorry, Michelle, for captioning, I had to delete a section. We have one other upcoming event this semester and one in January. All are hybrid or virtual. You can find our full schedule as well as video recordings of our past events at disruptingdisruptions.com. That's the redirect URL, disruptingdisruptions.com. The other URL is too long to remember. You can also find our list of sponsors, including Shirk, Milieu, Reketh, and more. As we welcome you into our homes and our offices through Zoom, and you welcome us into yours, let us be mindful of space and place. As many of you know, past series speaker Suzanne Kite, Dr. Murphy, Jess McLean, Mel Hogan, and Sasha Lucioni have pointed to the physical and material impacts of the digital world. While many of the events this semester are hybrid or virtual, everything that we do is tied to the land and the space that we are on. We must always be mindful of the lands that the servers enabling our virtual events are on. Indigenous communities are disproportionately impacted by the mining practices used for the materials that are used to build our computers and digital infrastructure. Furthermore, as the series seeks to draw attention to power relations that have been invisibilized, it is important to acknowledge Canada's long colonial history and current political practices. This series is affiliated with the Institute for Gender, Sexuality, and Feminist Studies at McGill University. McGill is located in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, on unceded Kanien'kehá:ka territory. Furthermore, the ongoing organizing efforts by Indigenous communities, water protectors, and people involved in the land back movements make clear the ever-present and ongoing colonial violence in Canada. Interwoven with this history of colonization is one of enslavement and racism. This university's namesake, James McGill, enslaved Black and Indigenous peoples. It was in part from the money he acquired through these violent acts that McGill University was founded. We see that activism on campus today addressing the ongoing ways that the university is intertwined with colonial violence. These histories are here with us in this space and inform the conversations we have today. I encourage you to learn more about the lands that you are on. Nativeland.ca is a fantastic resource for beginning. Now for today's event. Lori Beckstead is a podcaster and associate professor in the RTA School of Media at Toronto Metropolitan University, Canada, who loves dad jokes, footnotes, and bandying about the word neoliberalism. Ian M. Cook is an anthropologist from a magical place where giant gingers are produced. He works for OLIVE, the Open Learning Initiative in Hungary, which provides adult education for people who have experienced displacement. Hannah McGregor is a podcaster, writer, and associate professor of publishing at Simon Fraser University in Canada. She always has an automated email reply on, even when she's not on holiday. And Hannah's latest book on Jurassic Park just came out, which is very exciting. And they also, in addition to their amazing book that they're going to talk about today, they also produced an amazing zine. So I'm so excited to welcome our speakers today. I look forward to this great event. Yes, Ian has the zine too, so we're going to show it off. Yeah, and so welcome our speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex, so much for having us as part of this series, this illustrious series, including more than 100 events so far. That's amazing. Congratulations on that.
Incredible.
So we really appreciate being part of this. So maybe I'll just kind of give an orientation to sort of what we're doing, and then we'll launch into it. So attendees can see our current slide, I think. So we have a picture of the book that we have written, which was published earlier this year. podcaster perish, peer review, and knowledge creation for the 21st century and beyond. So we're all interested in peer review, in how we create knowledge, and we're also all interested coming at it from different disciplinary fields in podcasting and how we can use that to leverage peer review and knowledge creation. And we have a little game for you to play to start off. So let's get into the game. Ian, this is yours.
Okay, everyone, please pay attention. It's a rainy evening in Tarrytown, Akala. You find yourself in a dark room surrounded by haunted souls. "Don't do it," says Nancy. She's been the most reluctant of the group the whole day. You pluck up the kind of steely determination usually reserved for an action hero about to take their final stand. "We have no choice," you say. "It's time," says Gerald, nodding earnestly. "Everyone in the room knows there's no going back now. You're going to found an academic journal." Lightning strikes across the sky. Shadows dance across the car park. An empty packet of salt and vinegar crisps is blown up against the window pane. You see its silvery inners and think of mercury leaking from a cracked thermometer, enticing and dangerous.
You are now faced with multiple options regarding your peer review policy. Do you, A, adopt the standard double anonymous peer review that will encourage people to submit papers, help your journal eventually to get a good ranking, and give an air of legitimacy to the whole thing? Or option B, do you have a mix of peer-reviewed and non-peer-reviewed contributions, placating those who've asked for the inclusion of non-text-based submissions? Or option C, develop your own form of peer review that will employ different mediums and forms. But this may mean the journal will not be taken seriously by many of your colleagues. So we have a poll for you to choose your option.
And the winner is option C.
Option C. Well, we have a lot of exciting and interesting and open thinkers here today. So let's see what happens when we choose option C, your own form of peer review that employs different mediums and forms.
Your journal marks a radical departure from the journals that came before. It places traditional articles, podcast episodes, videos, photo essays, graphic and illustrated contributions, and other formats side by side. It quickly becomes a go-to venue for early career scholars eager to experiment with the mediums in which they publish their scholarship. Working with your editorial team, you develop an open peer review process that adapts to the medium of submission. It takes more time and effort to track down appropriate reviewers, but the fact that the review is both creative and open, and therefore the reviewers get credit, means your rejection rate is pretty low. 3 years later, you get an email from one of your earliest published authors. They were a PhD student working in graphic ethnography who submitted an updated version of their master's thesis. You worked closely with this young scholar to get their work ready for review and then mentored them through the revision process. Seeing their name in your inbox now, you remember that around that time your marriage had been on thin ice. The extra hours you stayed late at the office talking this inexperienced author through their revisions may have been the tipping point into your divorce. You think to yourself, at least I made a difference in a promising young scholar's career, and you click open their email. They're writing to tell you that they've just been rejected for a major grant in their field because they didn't have a strong enough record of peer-reviewed publication. The jury had specifically noted that their publication in your journal didn't count because the review hadn't been double-blind and thus did not meet the gold standard of scholarship. The email is admonishing. It was your responsibility as the editor to make it clear to all contributors what was at stake in participating in an open peer review process. You took advantage of them being a first-generation scholar for whom English wasn't their first language. Because of you, their career is ruined.
So what do you do now? Do you A, call your ex-spouse and leave a 17-minute voicemail telling them how much you miss them and how you realize now that they were right about everything, that the university never would love you back, and that ultimately focusing your energies on transforming a broken institution has been a waste of your one precious life? Or B, immediately begin drafting a white paper directed at the funder in question, explaining why they should update their policies to recognize the legitimacy of open peer review. You pause your typing briefly to text your best friend, cancelling your roller skating plans. You've got writing to do. Or C, nothing. Since when do you read, let alone answer your emails? All right, guys, you know the drill. Please vote again. People were much faster to vote this time.
Because they want to hear that music.
I don't think anyone needs to hear 30 seconds worth of that. All right. It looks like most of the results are in. What we got, Hannah?
And here they are. Option D. Since when do you read, let alone answer your email?
You folks are just after my heart here. This is my preferred option as well. But oh no, it's perish. You quit your job, sell your house, and go backpacking around Southeast Asia, hanging out in hostels and attempting to impress 19-year-old geeky Europeans with the fact that you were once a professor. Wah, wah, wah. So should we play another round of this? Should we go back to the beginning and?
Oof. Oh, I don't know.
I
don't know. Do you think that do you think that if we chose a different option, we'd get through?
There's only one way to know, I guess. We can't really interact with people in this panel format, so we have no idea whether people want us to do this or they're just like captive. They're screaming at their screens. No, stop, stop.
Please, God, stop.
Please type in the Q&A if you would like us to stop. But
we'll never stop.
Without knowing, let's do another round. Okay, so we've decided we're founding a journal. Let's go back to our options. So I think we chose C last time. So shall we try option A or B this time? Adopt the standard double anonymous peer review?
We got immediate B's.
Okay, some people think no, don't vote for C. That's not allowed. That's off the ballot.
C again.
It's off the ballot.
All right, so it was B, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go with B. A mix of peer-reviewed and non-peer-reviewed contributions, placating those who've asked for the inclusion of non-text-based submissions.
Yeah, you've got it. This one will work.
Oh, gonna move my thing. It's been a few years since founding your journal. It's now highly ranked. You receive an email with a concerned tone from the head of a selection committee at a really prestigious university. It seems that someone they just hired had claimed to have one more peer-reviewed publication than they actually did. It turns out that they had listed a photo essay they had published in your journal under the peer-reviewed publication section of their CV. The decision to hire this scholar had been a close call. 420 people had applied for the position, but the chosen candidate's impressive record of 69 publications every year for a decade gave them a strong advantage. The selection committee's head is all in a tizzy, threatening to expose your journal as not only having dubious standards, but also facilitating scholarly misconduct.
Why did we found a journal again?
Oh, no. Seems like
What
a
do you
really
do?
bad idea.
What do you do? A, that piece is clearly marked as non-reviewed, and maybe you should... sorry.
No!
Maybe you should have double-checked the candidate's references before making them an option. Or do you say, I'm so sorry for the confusion, but can I direct you to our journal's disclaimer page in which we explain that legally none of this is our problem? Or do you launch into an explanation of the complex history of peer review, reminding the head of the selection committee that recent scholarship demonstrates that peer review is, in fact, extremely bad at finding errors, and it has a tendency to reinforce the peer reviewer's existing biases based on either their knowledge of the anonymized author, so-called anonymized author, or their belief, or their belief that they can identify the anonymous. This happened last time. It's my touchy mouse. Okay, so it has a tendency to reinforce the peer reviewer's existing biases based on either their knowledge of the anonymized author or their belief that they can identify that author. You're halfway through describing your journal's editorial policy when you start to cry into your muffin-strewn keyboard. It's been years of having running Zoom and this. It's been years of having the same argument with people who were unwilling to apply even a morsel of critical thinking when examining their own practices. What was this all for? You scream into the void as you begin stress eating a packet of salt and vinegar chips. Which one is it? A, B, or C?
Crisps.
All right, A, B, or C. Oh, we got a tie. Get in there and tie break.
Yeah, someone needs to vote.
Yeah. Oh, more people voted, and it continues to tie. More.
Yes.
All right, come on. We need tie breaks. Somebody get in there and break this tie.
Yeah. It's like even.
We might need to bring Alex in to.
We're just gonna sit here for the next 90 minutes. Otherwise,
yeah. We're gonna wait. We're all teachers. We can wait you all out until somebody gives in and votes.
Hannah, which one would you do?
Which one of these would I actually do? C.
Let's do C. I think I would do B myself. What would you do, Ian?
Oh, I don't know. A.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, can you believe it? It led to perishing. There is oh god, I'm so sorry for but we do like to hear the Pac-Man dying sound, don't we? There's a revolt amongst your journal's editorial board. The board has slowly been taken over by people who use the glamour of your edgy journal to enhance their otherwise standard prestige-chasing career. You find yourself removed from anything to do with the journal you helped found all those years ago. It's sad, isn't it? Is there any way to win?
Is there any way to win? Well, you'll have to get your hands on a copy of the zine to find out exactly how you can win.
All right.
But in the meantime,
let's just find our way here. Okay.
I can't believe I co-wrote a book with someone with such a messy desktop. I've never
yeah,
seen
it's
your desktop
shocking.
before, Laurie.
It's actually really shocking.
Am I the only person with a desktop like that?
For sure.
No.
Yes. Of the three of us, my desktop is immaculate.
That's what my brain looks like right there. All right, Hannah, over to you. Let's actually take this silly game that we played and make the subtext actual text.
Time to make the subtext of the game text, which is one of the central premises of our book, Podcast or Perish, is that conventional models of peer review, especially in journals, are pretty broken. And that's for a variety of reasons. They're slow, leaving important work languishing too long. Different disciplines have responded to this in different ways, including the rise of the use of preprint publications and the coverage of science studies, which has its own sets of challenges. It is too much work drawing on exploitative labor practices. Right? You know, for example, that for-profit paywalled journal publishers get all of the sort of academic labor of writing, editing, and peer reviewing done for free, while then charging universities absolutely exploitative rates to subscribe to the very journals that people are doing all the work for free. They are too mean, with some reviewers abusing anonymity to exercise gatekeeping and cruelty. Everybody's got a story about a reviewer B whose response to their paper was not only ungenerous, but cruel, sexist, racist, and the anonymity often becomes a function that protects them from actual consequences for their behavior. And it is too constrained by both writing norms, that's the style in which you write and the expectation that all knowledge needs to be produced in writing in the first place, as well as the managerial demand for productivity to be measured and ranked. So the conventional way that we approach peer review in academia right now has a tendency to be tied to these neoliberal expectations that the goal is for academics to be ever increasingly productive, to put out as many articles as humanly possible, which demands ever greater amounts of peer review labor, which means that people take peer review less and less seriously, have less and less time to actually do it carefully. And it tends to dehumanize people on all sides of the publishing experience.
So we figured podcasts could play a role in overcoming some of these issues with traditional peer review publication. So let's define what we view as being scholarly podcasts. So we think of them as podcasts that do all of these things. So number one, they create new knowledge. And it doesn't matter about the format or the style, whether it's an interview podcast, a monocast, a chatcast, a narrative nonfiction podcast, that the underpinning that it creates new knowledge somehow is key. Scholarly podcasts also are accountable to a community of peers. And we didn't just say they're peer reviewable, they are accountable to a community of peers. And so that recognizes that podcasts form communities around them of people with shared interests. And because they are published online and are available to anyone, even if you're speaking to a particularly scholarly audience, there is a knowledge that other people, lay people, other people who are interested or curious will also have the potential to be listening to it as well. And we include those people as what we think of as peers. So we're expanding the idea of who is a peer in this case. The knowledge that the scholarly podcasts create can be interrogated, cited, and in some disciplines reproduced. So it can't necessarily be reproduced in all disciplines, of course, but the important part is that they are available to be questioned and cited. And that the scholarly podcasts, by nature of podcasting itself, can be responsive and can create sort of a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue that can respond to comments, critiques, or suggestions. And that can happen either before publication, or it can happen during the publication, or it can happen afterwards as part of either an ongoing series of episodes of a podcast, or as part of what happens in the social media community built around the podcast. So it's that reciprocity and responsiveness that we think is important. Additionally, in our thinking around scholarly podcasting, we decided that we think of podcasting as a public and participatory sonic action, because we have to have fancy definitions for things. So that's ours.
So what does scholarly podcasting do to knowledge creation? So we started to think through what it is that makes a podcast. So as Laurie just said, we had this definition, but we started to think about the different elements that come together to make a podcast. So one of those we said was voice, because not always, but I think 99.99% of the time, podcasts are made through human voices, either in conversation or a monocast or documentary style or so on. Not only voice, but voice is key. Secondly, very often through conversation, and we don't just mean when it's just two people talking. Sometimes that's conversation with other podcasts, with other thinkers, with ideas, and so on and so forth. And finally, it's a form of digital publishing. Podcasting has been, it's a digital born medium. It's something which has emerged from, we won't go into the history, it's sort of not, it's been said many times. It's not super interesting, but we know that podcasts came about once people were able to subscribe to audio via various means, initially through phones, but also from their computers as well.
It is in fact very interesting. How dare you?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I'm sorry for saying that. But I just didn't want to talk about it. And when we were preparing, Hannah said, don't talk too much, Ian. So I was just trying to like skim over that. But now I've been found out. Anyway, and Anyway, so what about the human voice? So here's what's super interesting about the human voice is that they're extremely personal, right? Like when you read a text, an academic text, especially because we've often been trained to write in a certain way, it's actually very hard to find out who that person is writing. Some people can write with a personal style. It depends on the discipline, but not always. It's embodied. You hear the actual body. We are not brains in jars. We are human beings. And they can very often, the human voice, convey effective meaning, often much better than you can in writing. Like you can convey emotion through your voice because we all do that all the time, but people often struggle to do that with writing unless you're a really, really good writer, which some people are. But it's often quite difficult for academics to do that in certain ways. But we're not saying this is all wonderful. We of course know that when you hear somebody's voice, you instantly make a lot of judgments about them. You make a judgment in terms of their class, their gender, maybe their sexuality, and many other things. And we all know that certain voices are granted certain legitimacy and certain voices aren't. And especially in the academic world, a lot of people know what they think a professor sounds like. They sound like a whiny Canadian. I mean, Jordan Peterson, not my co-authors. And and of course, it's very difficult for people also to escape that when they're trying to speak about certain topics. Secondly, scholarly podcasting is also a process of meaning making through conversation. And we find that really, really interesting that, that very often when we think about traditional academic publishing, people spend a very long time getting something to the point where it's absolutely perfect or as perfect as it can be and impenetrable to all these arguments around it. And that's when it's published. But we think that's a bit sad in a way, because I think especially for people who aren't necessarily involved in academia on a day-to-day basis, they miss the actual production of the knowledge, and podcasting opens that up because you get to be able to hear the ways in which people come to realize certain things, the way that knowledge is created, the way it's interrogated, and so on and so forth. It can be very messy. It can be very imprecise, which, text is often much better at being a bit more precise and at being a bit more controlled. But at the same time is within that messy, imprecise nature of producing knowledge, wonderful things can emerge. And finally, the final thing is about digital publishing. And this is also very different, of course, than publishing via a traditional academic way, because it's out there in the world. It invites a certain responsiveness from the listener, because you have people who, all the sort of paraphernalia that goes around it, the social media, also people write in, people can have their questions answered, people can appear on podcasts, people can even create podcasts, and it's serial, right? People subscribe to it, and it happens over time, and you bring your author along with you. All right. And ...
So there are some really interesting affordances to scholarly publishing. There's some exciting things that are scholarly podcasting. There are some exciting things that scholarly podcasting has the capacity to do. One of the central ones for us is that it has the capacity to transform the concept of peer review. That can happen in a few ways. One is, as Lori referenced, the fact that we build communities of engagement around our podcasts that have the potential to expand our concept of who our peers are and who the audience for our research might be. The fact that podcasts are born digital, open access, and often significantly more accessible conceptually to a wider audience than conventional scholarly writing means that people with a great deal of interest or engagement in a particular topic might get involved in the community of listeners around a podcast who wouldn't ever be tapped for formal peer review through a journal because their expertise wouldn't be recognized through the formal peer review process that a journal uses. So there's an opportunity right off the bat to say, if peer review is responsiveness and accountability to my peers about the accuracy of what I'm saying, podcasting gives me an opportunity to be in dialogue with an expanded audience of my peers and to be responding on an ongoing basis. And that is one example of the way that scholarly podcasting in general can upset some of the inherited practices of scholarship that, particularly in the past few decades in academia, have ossified in some really ahistorical ways. You know, things like the idea that the gold standard is double anonymized peer review, which is actually an incredibly recent shift in how scholarly publishing works when you actually look at the sort of longer scale of the practice. And so that sort of resistance to the idea of like, maybe we change how we approach peer review, you know, people react as though that's a shocking revolutionary thing to do, but it's like, it's actually really recent that we even decided this is how peer review would work in the first place. So all of those pros, all of those possibilities are both exciting to us as people who are interested in challenging and transforming the practices of peer review and people who are interested in podcasting. And also, they suggest a little bit of technological utopianism, a kind of like this new technology is going to come in and it's going to fix everything. And that's simply not the case. Podcasting cannot single-handedly save the university from neoliberalism and its obsession with metrics. In fact, in some ways, it's extremely tempting to the metric obsessed because the traditional ways that we evaluate the success of podcasts has a lot to do with numbers. And so, you know, you present a scholarly podcast, there's going to be a temptation to, you know, make its impact equivalent to its download numbers, as though scholarly impact is synonymous with ability to sell ad spots on your podcast. So there's, you know, there's these built-in metric-based logics that podcasting can bring along with it. Also, it can't just be jammed into our existing structures. And we say this advisedly because there have been attempts to do so, to say, well, let's just take a podcast, but publish it exactly the same way we would publish an article, for example, without rethinking things like how peer review works, how anonymity works, the role of affect, the role of the voice and conversation. Podcasting brings transformative possibilities, but also just brings a lot of media differences with it. And if we want to embrace its sort of potential to disrupt the status quo, then one of the things that we need to do is actually think about how it is different as a medium, and how peer review, when done with this medium or on this medium, also needs to be different. So we looked at some case studies.
Yeah, we looked at various case studies, which you can refer to in our book. And in considering these affordances of podcasting and how we would like to see peer review move forward and evolve in the future, we came to this idea of the 3 C's of appreciative reviewing. We feel that using podcasts to create scholarly knowledge, to peer review scholarly knowledge, is an appreciative at its core. It's an appreciative activity. You can't hear someone's voice. You can't hear them being vulnerable by opening up their thought process and their, you know, in my case, inability, I think, to articulate a meaningful sentence. If I transcribed what I say aloud, it doesn't read. It reads like I'm a complete, you know, gibbering idiot, right? So, you know, there's a certain amount of vulnerability. And so being that there is that vulnerability, that sort of, you know, performed authenticity, intimacy, all of the other things we think are associated with podcasting, that it ultimately is an appreciative medium for reviewing. So it results in appreciative reviewing. So the 3 C's of appreciative reviewing: creative, communal, and caring. So we think that peer review should be creative. It should be creative in the sense not only that we're, experimenting and being quote unquote creative, but that it is in the sense of being generative, generating something new. So it's creative review that works things out as it goes along. It's generative and creative. It's communal. As we've mentioned before, peer review is as an open and communal process, lets us rethink the role of trust and vulnerability and generosity in scholarly communication. As we mentioned, it makes us rethink the role of who is a peer, who can have input into these things. And so it becomes a very communal way of reviewing, which I think is super important. I hate the double anonymized way of reviewing. I did one recently and I actually wrote in, I'm like, if the editors will allow it, I'd really love to talk to these people about their paper because, I'd really love to have this conversation and be able to, be more helpful, I think. And so that brings us to C, the caring. So it can encourage creativity and vulnerability by centering care, creating the possibility for deeply compassionate and generative scholarly conversations. So in the frustration that we all feel when we just have to type out some feedback, and it's late at night and we're tired, and we just had a long day, whatever it is that is frustrating as it comes out sometimes in that, because it's like, this is a real task to write these things down. And in order to be helpful, it would be useful for me to write a lot more, but I don't have the capacity for it. But somehow when we look someone in the face and speak to them face to face about their work, it becomes an exciting, collaborative, caring, communal, creative way of discussing their work and helping to move it forward. Oops.
That was a funny, you said helping to move it forward and then you moved
and I go back.
See what you did there.
So here's the question, but I think you already know the answer to this because you might have guessed it through playing our game. And Hannah also mentioned as well about scholarly podcasting not being a silver bullet. So if we wanted to ask ourselves, can podcasting transform academia? Well, maybe if podcasting can evade the neoliberal logics and metrics that pervade academia, and if podcasting preserves its subversive potential while also being legitimized by academic systems, and if podcasts can exist outside the systematic biases that hear some voices as more authoritative than others, and if everyone, regardless of their institution or position, has equal access to the potential of podcasting, then yes, podcasting might just be able to disrupt the academic status quo. But as you might have guessed, we don't think it really can, and we're not all of us invested in the idea of saving academia. Rather, we're invested in the idea of making scholarly knowledge a bit more, well, democratic, fun, open, disruptive, and all of these sorts of things. And I think we've talked for about 40 minutes, which is what we wanted to do. And now we're open to questions, comments, discussion, communal baths, whatever it is you want to do with us.
And if you're wondering about this graphic here and you haven't checked out the book, we do write a manifesto about scholarly podcasting and peer review from a bathtub. So we are sitting in a metaphorical bathtub. And so hence our little graphic here. But you'll have to read the book to find out more about that.
What we're doing in the bathtub.
Well, thank you all so much for that wonderful presentation. I laughed a lot. I'm sorry you couldn't hear it, but your jokes were very appreciated throughout. And I want to welcome our audience members, our attendees, to type your questions into the Q&A box below so that our amazing panelists can speak to your questions. While we're awaiting some of your questions, I was hoping that you could speak to some of the ways that you have effectively seen, like maybe some specific examples to like point to a podcast, like academic podcasts for audience members, if maybe they've never heard an academic podcast before, like examples that they might want to look to.
Ian, you wrote a book where you interviewed 101 academics who make podcasts. You wanna
That's on me, Ian. That question's for you then.
Yeah, that was my previous book. Well, it depends. I mean, I don't. People always ask them me for recommendations. I struggle because I listen to so many of them. Um, yeah, that's my book. That's my previous book. But you know, ooh, so I'm not going to recommend anything that Laurie and Hannah made. Oh, Hannah made. That's not fair. Do you know what's really good if you speak Portuguese, which I don't? So it's recommending it is bad. It's called Mundario, and it's a Portuguese anthropological podcast. But the reason why I really like it, I'm an anthropologist, is that what they did in the podcast is they brought together the anthropologist together with one of their interlocutors, someone that they did research amongst, and then they had the anthropologist explain their research to the interlocutor on the podcast. At which point the person was like, "What the fuck? Like that's what you got from all of your research. Actually, it's a little bit different." And I thought it was a really good way of firstly pushing forward the research, extending the research, and allowing it to to keep on finding a new cycle of knowledge production, but also disrupt the hierarchies. Who's the expert? Who gets to speak back to the expert, and all of these sorts of things. So I think is just one example of an interesting podcast. What about you, Laurie? What about you, Hannah? What ideas do you have?
Yeah, I would recommend Mac Haygood's podcast, Phantom Power. And I'm from media studies and I teach podcasting and radio production, and so very much focused on the doing and the creating of those things. And his podcast is about sound studies, but it's this beautifully crafted narrative nonfiction style podcast with guests, with clips, and with the audio, the sound design itself playing a role in uncovering what the scholarship is about. So that's one that kind of turns the sort of format of, scholarship must be written on its head, that there is something that can be brought to scholarship, new ways of looking at things through the actual medium itself, and sound design is part of that. And I've had I've had that experience in my career pre-tenure, doing experimental sound works and interactive materials and things like that as a way for people to interact with the data that I had collected, and being told, well, but you need to publish it in a journal. But it's right there. Like, you can listen to it, you can play with it. And, so there's a bit of sorry, that's my little bitter rant, but it's all good now. Hannah, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, those are both wonderful examples. I'm gonna give one that is structurally really different again, which is Media Indigena. It's a wonderful podcast hosted by Rick Harp. It is a panel of Indigenous scholars, predominantly working at institutions in Canada, who Rick brings together to talk about, a recent, generally sort of timely stories in the news. Rick is a journalist by training, and it's an opportunity to bring these experts in, and all of the experts are Indigenous, and they bring in a really different perspective than you're going to hear in mainstream news that is nonetheless extremely timely. And it's a really wonderful, if you are somebody who likes to follow the news, but perhaps is aware that what you are receiving through mainstream media is a fairly limited perspective, particularly in like deeply colonial perspective, right? Particularly in Canada, where we understand that like meaningful critique of colonization is not going to happen in the mainstream media. It's a really excellent podcast.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Elena, who writes, you talked about how podcasting can transform academia. Can you say something about how podcasting can help academics to reach the larger public?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who wants to take that?
It's it's one of the many exciting possibilities in scholarly podcasting. It's not one that we focus on an enormous amount in the book. And part of that is because we are interested particularly in the sort of internal logics of scholarly communication, right? Like how we actually go about doing the work that we do. But that idea of reaching an expanded public is one of the primary reasons why people work in open access and public facing media. And the reality is that even the most barely listened to podcast is probably going to be listened to significantly more than a journal article is going to be read. There are people out there making podcasts that they have been making for years that maybe get like a dozen listeners to an episode. And that can seem, if you were trying to make money off that podcast, that would be, pretty hard to do. But a dozen people regularly engaging with your work and engaging in conversation with you is significantly more public than most scholars ever actually have the opportunity to interact with. So when we think about public engagement, again, there can be that temptation to really go to a numbers place and be like, cool, you can demonstrate the impact of your work by reaching as many people as possible. And that can happen. Some scholarly podcasts become quite mainstream. She said, trying to think of an example of one that's ever happened. But like you said, look at, for example, Tressie McMillan Cottom, who is a sociologist in the US who is an extremely high profile public scholar. She's interviewed on The Daily Show. She's a New York Times opinion columnist, and she had a podcast with Roxane Gay. Like that podcast, I guarantee, because, Dr. McMillan Cottom is brilliant. I guarantee that podcast was deeply rooted in scholarly knowledge and definitely had a massive public. But I don't think it's the best reason to get into podcasting, is the goal of having a massive public. I think having a public outside of the unbelievably limited sphere of who's going to engage with your article in a paywall journal, like that opportunity to actually have a public at all is the really exciting piece of podcasting for me.
We also want to be careful about the expectation to podcast being put on scholars and academics as yet another responsibility and labor output that is expected of them. So, okay, great, pat on the head, you published in the journal, managers and administrators at the university say, now, why don't you do a podcast so we can, do some PR for the university? And so, we don't want it to drift into that territory where it becomes an add-on, even just thinking of it as an add-on or as a public relations thing or as a way to promote the scholarship. We really want to focus on the idea that this is where the scholarship is being done.
Ian, did you want to speak to that? Or if not, Esley can read the next question.
I'll just say it in 2 lines then. Having said all that, I agree with everything that Hannah and Laurie said. And at the same time, the reason there is something amazing and wonderful and democratizing about scholarly podcasting. It is super exciting that actually there is like an audience out there that isn't just like going to tolerate a little bit of science on the radio in amongst whatever else. Actually, there's an audience out there that want to subscribe to deep dives into really obscure and niche topics. And that's amazing because actually, very often the sort of a dumb discourse that there's lots of dumb people around, right? But actually that's not true. There's lots of people who actually really want to get into stuff. And this is why we think so much about peer review, is that the reason why we're invested in thinking through different ways in which we can peer review scholarly podcasting is because there's so many bad ones as well. There's nothing to stop me becoming pretending I am an expert in something I'm not and just putting it out there on a podcast. So I think this is why we think peer review is important, that we're going to reach a larger audience, sure, but there has to be some responsibility there. And that's not about gatekeeping. That's about scholars saying, you know what we do is actually serious stuff and it needs to be taken as such. And this is why we started the presentation by saying what we think of scholarly podcasting is something which is accountable to its peers, something which can be interrogated, etc., and so on.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that. I think we'll move on to the next question, which kind of ties back a little bit to what Hannah was saying before as well. Kind of when you were pitching the Indigenous podcast. So an anonymous attendee says, do you think that there could be a parallel or similarity made with Indigenous communities' knowledge being shared through oral teachings? And can podcasts be a decolonial tool in academia?
I think there's undeniably the potential. I think one of the most sort of the affordances of podcasting that is most aligned with decolonization initiatives within academia is the recognition that serious, rigorous knowledge can be shared in oral forms. The insistence within academia that written knowledge is the only form of legitimate knowledge is obviously deeply rooted in, Western and colonial understandings of what makes knowledge legitimate, and recognizing that that the oral is not simply a secondary accompaniment to the written, or a less formal sort of form that knowledge can take before you finalize it, right? You can give a paper at a conference and have a conversation about it, but really what you have to be heading towards is the written formal article, right? That sort of hierarchy of the oral and the written is a deeply colonial understanding of knowledge. And so creating space for knowledge to be made out loud, takes seriously the idea of oral communication as a legitimate way to make knowledge, and the things that are specific to how we make knowledge out loud and in conversation with each other, right? Because that is also really central. The conversational dynamic, the give and take, the exchange, the sort of collaboration that comes through when you are building an idea up together out loud, the vulnerability, the movement away from a position of assumed impenetrable authority. All of these things have the potential to contribute to the larger project of decolonization. I'm really hesitant ever to say podcasting, a decolonial medium, because it's not. And if you look at the most popular podcasts at any given time, it will show you that those who are using podcasting most popularly, I was going to say effectively, but I don't want to give them that word, most popularly, are not doing anything politically radical. They're in fact often doing really terrible political things. But I think that potential is there. I think it's a latent potential within the medium if we are careful and deliberate about what we do with it.
Thank you. Laurie or Ian, did you want to add anything to that, or?
I think Hannah answered that really well.
I'll just give my 10-second take. Is that just the one more thing to say is that what's interesting about the sort of reshaping of scholarly communication through podcasting is that the people who have taken it on very often, and you know what I'm doing now is I'm just repeating back to you something that Hannah once told me, is that very often the people who are drawn towards podcasting and who are also scholars are people who are maybe sidelined in academia. And because that's also because I'm really just quoting Hannah here, sorry about this, but because they're accountable to people also outside of academia that are only accountable to whatever systems of legitimacy and authority exist within it. And that's why you often find people who are doing the podcasting often from not necessarily only from Indigenous communities, but from many other groups who don't feel totally at home or welcomed inside academia. And it's about finding a way to be a scholar, but also be speaking to people who are your people, not speaking to them in that ways.
Fantastic. Thank you. Definitely resonates how I feel about it too. Not that anyone asked my opinion. Okay. So
Alex, what's your opinion?
I agree. Okay, I'll ask Marie's question. Marie writes, Hannah, you are speaking to my heart when you say that most podcasts receive more engagement than most academic articles. I found it challenging to get people in academia to take my podcasting seriously, and it's only when I bring up metrics that the conversation changes. Any tips on how to highlight podcasting endeavors without resorting to metrics?
Yes. Talk about process. This is also what I think is super, super important. I mean, like what I've got from making podcasts and what I know from speaking to people who also make podcasts is it's been really, really important for many, many people as part of their broader reframing of themselves as a scholar in terms of upskilling themselves in different ways. You get better at speaking, you get better at writing, you get better at formulating questions, you get better at trying to explain things to people. The same way that like those of us who are teachers know, the only way you really know a text is not when you read it, but when you try and teach it. You're like, okay, now I really need to understand that. And it's the same with podcasting. You really sort of have to reorientate yourself towards whatever sort of knowledge is there. If you are a social scientist and you can sort of build it into your research project in different ways, it's super interesting. If you can think about it as a form of ongoing ongoing literature review, right? You know, I'm in this field. I don't want to speak to loads of people who I otherwise wouldn't get to speak to. Then you can go and do it like that. There's lots of ways to think about podcasting beyond just the metrics. And as Hannah and Laurie said before, don't freak out too much about numbers, because to be honest, there's so many podcasts out there. You could start a podcast tomorrow and nobody might listen to it. But that's not the reason we are thinking about doing podcasts. We're doing, I mean, because no one also reads text very often as well. Apart from our book, which just sold thousands of copies. Yeah. But I mean, so
We're rich.
We're rich. Yeah, we're gonna buy Laurie a new mouse with all our royalties.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think process is a great one. You know, I just last night was participating in a scholarly podcasting teach-in at SFU, and I sort of shouted down the panel at Lupin Battersby, who's our knowledge mobilization officer at SFU. And she is really interested in advocating for non-traditional scholarship, including helping scholars develop ways to frame the value of our work. And I was like, hey, Lupin, you want to write a guide on how to evaluate the impact of a scholarly podcast? And she was like, yeah. So we're, you know, that conversation is unfolding right now, as we think about like, okay, well, what kind of impact do I actually want? What are tools that will work when I'm speaking to my you know, my manager, my chair, my dean, my, you know, whoever it is, my tenure and promotion committee, whoever it is I need to convince that this work is legitimate. And then, you know, how do I articulate it to peers? How do I articulate it to other people in my discipline? How do I articulate it to students? You know, and it's thinking of a variety of tools to have available to you, depending on who you're speaking to, can be really useful. And at times, if you want to just like dazzle people with download numbers, like sometimes I'm like, just go right ahead. Like, sure, why not? Or like,
Lie.
well, even if you don't, it's still gonna just like add up all of the downloads for every episode ever, and then, you know. But you know, a colleague of mine at the same event who made one of the New Books Network podcasts, which is, you know, this big network of podcasts that are like reviews, like a replacement for the sort of the review model. It's like an interview that the host does with the authors of new books in their discipline. And she created the French Studies New Book Network podcast, New Books in French Studies. And she made an episode a month for 10 years. And on the, you know, insistence of a colleague of hers, when she was applying for tenure, she listed, rather than just saying, I made this podcast, I made this number of episodes, she listed every single episode the same way that you would list every single article that you had published, which is just another tool of making that work visible, of not being like, oh, I host this event, you know, I've been doing the speaker series, it's 102 speakers. It's like, no, list all 102 events. Like, let people see that this non-traditional work is work. I think it is also an important piece of the larger conversation.
I was just going to say, Marie, it's a shame that you say that, it's only when you bring up metrics that the conversation changes. So yes, it does depend who you're speaking to. And, that sounds to me like someone who sees this as something new that they have to wrap their head around. And that sounds like work, and nobody needs any extra work on their plate. So they just are like, show me numbers. But we're working on it, right? This is a nascent thing. And these kinds of conversations and all of the people who are participating in creating podcasts and, doing what Hannah recommends, which is to really point out the labor, the knowledge, the valuable output that this has. The more we have those conversations, and unfortunately we will have to push that, right? Like it will be work for us. But hopefully it will become more normalized, that people will be willing to look at this and evaluate the scholarship on its own merits rather than just show me a number, just tick a box. So I mean that will probably always happen in academia, but what
Not
can
if we tear it to the ground first.
Exactly, burn it all down.
That's what our editor for this book, after we submitted our first draft, was like, can you make this more hopeful? And we were like, no, fine, I guess a little.
Esley, did you want to read the next one from Matt?
Yeah. So Matt asks or says, I'm loving this session. It's super fun. I'm wondering about the challenges of citation and academic podcast, which is super important within academic discourse in text-based journals. And I'm curious about ways that academic podcasters attempt to grapple with accurate and rigorous citation without losing flow of the audio listening experience. Or is that not important?
Yeah, imagine if as we were having conversations, we had to stop and do air quotes and say, as, stated by McGregor 2022. Yeah, so I think that the medium itself has the answer to that, in that podcasts are regularly accompanied by show notes. And so that allows you to have this conversation without constantly having to, it's a real brain switch, right? To be in the middle of sort of crafting an argument or having a conversation and to think, okay, wait, there's somebody that I need to, so to avoid that brain switch, it's something you can simply do after the podcast has been produced. Obviously, if there's, if you're examining something through the lens of a particular theorist, then obviously that can be expounded off the top of the podcast and then proceed with the conversation. But then, and also on the flip side, like, how do we cite podcasts? I mean, obviously they are citable, but there are challenges with finding audio. Right. So searching audio content is, we haven't figured that out quite yet. Google hasn't figured it out. The powers that be have not figured it out quite yet. So transcripts still, I mean, maybe in an ironic way, we go back to text as at least the referential point for being able to cite something. I mean, you can still cite the time code in a podcast, but a transcript can help you find what you need. Maybe you were listening on the way to the grocery store or something, and, oh, that was really clever, I'll have to go. It's usually easier to find things through transcripts. And so I think the onus is on us as podcasters to make sure we provide the transcripts. I mean, that's just not on that we're going to deal in an audio only medium and leave anybody who's deaf or hard of hearing behind in this. So that becomes an imperative part of the work for sure. And it's also, it helps with accessibility for people who would like to read along as they listen. Maybe English isn't their first language, or they just, they process information differently and would like to have two sources of that information as it's going along. Mm-hmm.
You gonna go, Hannah, or am I?
I have a couple of examples I can give.
Do examples, then I'll do my and. Okay.
So two different ways that I have approached this in my own podcasting work. I make a show called Material Girls, where we do sort of feminist materialist readings of popular culture. And in those, we cite a lot of scholarship. And we script those episodes quite heavily, as my co-host Marcel Kaufman and I, we script those episodes quite heavily because we want to make sure there's a largely invisible screenshot of the podcast, proof that Ian has listened to it. Yeah, we script quite heavily because we really want to make sure that we are getting our citations right. And so we are, we're reworking those citations via the script into an oral format that is a little bit more comfortable. So, I'll say like, hey, Marcel, in order to give an example of how this works, I'd love you to read a little excerpt from this article called blah, blah, blah by this scholar. Could you read this for me? And then Marcel will go, okay. And then you say, quote, and then read the quote, and then say end quote, and then we move on. And, it won't, we include a works cited with the episode, but like, that citation won't necessarily have a page number. It won't include the date of the book, stuff that might, with different citation methods, with different style guides be required. But I think you can kind of think of like audio having its own style guide, that like you can be rigorous and careful in your citations out loud. It's just not going to be a direct reproduction of the way that operates on the page because it's a different medium. And then the other thing we're doing is, because this is a sort of norm that we've adopted more rigorously with Material Girls, but with some of our older podcasts, we were not being as careful about citing because we were sort of new to scholarly podcasting and we're just kind of winging it. And so I've hired a research assistant to go back through our transcripts and pull out the places where we mention things. And they're currently building a like a big, what's that sort of open source citation management tool that librarians love?
Zotero.
Zotero, yes, thank you. They're building a big Zotero list for all of our citations that, will include the episode where that particular thing is cited. So you can also like go back. You can always go back. I talked too long and Ian left.
Ian
I
was
kicked him
over.
out. He really wasn't pulling his weight, so
he was like, I don't
Wow.
actually want to say my 10-second thing
Wow.
anymore.
Wow.
So
He was like, I have an and that and is good night.
yeah. So well, while we wait for Ian to return, I want to encourage our audience members. We still have another like few minutes left. And while we're waiting for Ian to return, I also have a question. So we talked a bit about, the challenge of oh, Ian is back. Nope, he's gone again. He's just toying with our emotions now. Oh, let's see. Okay, I'll give space for Ian to give the
Hello.
10-minute spiel before I ask my next question. Hey, Ian,
What was I going to say? Nothing 10 minutes, 10 seconds.
You said,
no, 10 seconds. Sorry, yeah.
You said you had an and about citing.
Yeah, and sorry about that. I just had to join again on my phone. Yeah, and you know what? Like I was thinking about it. So I'm part of a, I guess, non-traditional anthropology journal, and we ask people not to cite very heavily when they write for us, because I actually have a feeling, I don't know how it is in everyone else's disciplines, but in anthropology, to be honest, we all cite way too much, and it's really annoying, and it really takes something away from the actual text. So when you submit stuff to a journal, very often, like the comments come back, they're asking for more and more citations. And when I read like this very early anthropology, apart from it being horribly racist and colonial, it's actually very well written, because they haven't got like this big sort of canon to constantly need to refer to, plus like the a million things that have been published on that topic in the last 5 years, because there's just an overproduction in academia. So there's actually something really liberating about discussing something in a podcast form, which you're allowed to do, because we know you don't have to constantly footnote at every single moment. Instead, you can have a conversation, you can reference one or two thinkers who excite you, and if there's more stuff, it can go in the transcript. And I think that's actually what's been really good about scholarly podcasting, is it's allowed people to be able to talk about stuff without it being so heavily cited, not cited, full of citations all the time.
Thanks, Ian. So again, for our audience members, we have a few minutes if you want to type in a question. So As I was saying when Ian disappeared for a moment, so we talked about searchability and the challenge of searchability, and hopefully maybe that will improve over time. But I know Hannah, in previous Secret Feminist Agenda episodes, you also talked about how sometimes it being harder to search also might keep some trolls and doxing away. So, that always that challenge of visibility. But another question I have is something that I'm wondering your thoughts on around digital preservation of podcasts. We see a lot of podcasts, and then people get tired of paying for their Podbean or whatever subscription. I'm not endorsing that platform, or but like kind of like how you're kind of seeing the sustainability and preservation of academic podcasts, because there's a lot of work that goes into making these, of course, and so other people can have access to them at different points.
Can I tell you about a project that I'm working on in this regard?
Yes, of course.
So via the Amplify Podcast Network, which is a collaboration I've been developing with Stacey Copeland and Siobhan McMenemy at Wilfrid Laurier University Press, we've been developing what we're calling the Amplify metadata packaging tool. And so what it is essentially an interface through which people, you enter the RSS feed for your podcast, and it uploads all of the information on the RSS feed. So that's all of the audio files, any attached pictures, any attached show notes, all of the metadata that's already attached to your RSS feed, which is, podcasting specific. And it feeds that out into its appropriate field. And then everything is editable. So you can also then go in, you can manually add transcripts if you need, you can correct everything. You can add scholarly metadata, for example, if you want to add co-authors, institutional affiliations, keyword tags, other stuff like that. And then once you have edited all of that information, you package the whole thing up and export it in a file format that is compatible with your institutional repository. And then you can just give your institutional repository a package that is like, works within whatever your repository's, particular platform is, and will allow you to have your podcast preserved on your institutional repository while still saving all of the medium specific metadata that makes podcasts usually sort of not fit on institutional repositories very well. So we're, this is like not quite at beta launch yet. We're still working out the kinks in it. Once we have confirmed that Secret Feminist Agenda has been our sort of test podcast, we finished putting all of the information into the tool and exporting it, and now we're waiting to see if it can go onto the institutional repository, which it should. There's no reason it won't, but and then once we've confirmed that works, we're going to beta launch to other scholarly podcasters at SFU, and then probably apply for some more funding to build it out so that it can. But the idea is that it's like a little tool that, like, it needs a little bit of server space because your podcast has to kind of live there while you're doing it. But then once you've packaged it and exported it, your podcast can be deleted. So it doesn't need a ton of server space. And so it's a tool that we can kind of share with any institution who wants it. And they can just like install it at their institution, and then just, they commit the actual server space for the long-term preservation through the institutional repository. So I think that it has some, I think it's a good idea because it's my research project and I came up with it. But that's exactly the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Is that, like, what models of long-term preservation do we have for scholarly podcasts?
Oh, that's amazing. So the audio itself is also, yeah, that's the big thing, right? Like the RSS feed, you can sort of preserve a lot of the metadata around a podcast, but it only points to where it exists. And as you say, Alex, if you get tired of paying your ransom fee on Podbean for the rest of your life, then it goes away. So that's brilliant, Hannah. I'm really excited to know about that.
Yeah.
Best
That's
wishes with
really
it.
exciting.
I would
Thank
say
you.
people should persuade their institutions to do stuff. I mean, libraries, universities have libraries for a reason, and it depends. So years ago, when I worked at a university, we had a very good librarian, and she was very forward thinking, and we persuaded her, and we set up a podcast library at the university. It still exists, but nobody puts anything on it anymore. So anyone at the university who was making a podcast, they could upload it there, and that would generate the RSS feed, so it could go into all of the places it needed to go. But at the same time, is you could tag it how you wanted. You could put any sort of metadata on it, and that was really important for being able to find ways and subscribing to different stuff. Unfortunately, then the university went to pieces, and she left, and I left, and whatever. So it still exists there, but I think basically a more stable institution with a good library and good librarians there. Those are the people who can also have the expert knowledge on how to actually create good repositories. And I don't think there can be one central place to rule them all, right? It's going to have to be, because it's going to take up, there's no server big enough. But universities, good forward thinking librarians at universities are probably the people who will be able to, save podcasts from their death.
Amazing. Hannah, I have one follow-up question on this. I'm also mindful of time. We haven't had any other folks write in anything, but for that tool, because a lot of people put their transcripts as a Google Doc, will it also be able to grab that data, or will that be a separate?
So far you would have to like manually add the transcript Google Doc.
Okay.
So you can either attach a PDF, or you can copy and paste text into a transcript sort of box, and those are both options. But that information isn't like, it's not, unless you've dropped it into your show notes, it's not like attached to an RSS feed in the same way.
Yeah.
So there's the challenge is going to be, for anybody who wants to do this preservation, is going to be like the actual hours of like ensuring that your work is uploaded correctly and tagged correctly. And part of my hope, for those of us who have been doing this work for years and years, we've got a big backlog, but if we in general start to incorporate it into our workflow as part of how scholarly podcasting works, that you just do preservation as part of your work, then I'm hoping that will in the long run make it less labor intensive. The other nice thing is that institutional repositories, often like ours at SFU Summit, anything in the institutional repository comes up on Google Scholar. So it automatically makes scholarly podcasts more discoverable as well.
Fantastic.
And I'm
Thank
wondering
you.
if that labor might change over time. So like the RSS standards or whatever, I'm in a little bit over my head here in terms of the technicalities of RSS, but there has been, as I understand it, a push to have transcript, like a link to the transcript in the RSS feed. And I don't know if that exists now or it's coming, but, and pointing to it, hopefully this repository could simply, like suck it off of the web and take it into the repository. So maybe the labor becomes less if, and wouldn't it be, I'm blue skying here, but if the RSS standards or whatever could take into account, ultimately it's limitless what could be in an RSS document, what it can point to and what it can, associate with the metadata. And so what if RSS incorporated the needs of scholarly podcasting?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe we'll see that one day, right? And that
I've talked to a lot of scholarly digital publishing platforms about whether or not they want to create their own podcast hosting service, right? Because they could absolutely create norms in their RSS feeds that incorporate scholarly metadata. And in general, the response I've gotten is that it's just not worth it, because there are so many inexpensive podcast hosting solutions already out there, and there would be too much competition. But it's something it's something that I really wish somebody had said yes to, but I kept going around and talking to everybody, and they were like, no. All right.
I think we'll ask one last question from an anonymous attendee, but I also want to note Sarah's comment, which is that Sarah's from a scientific field and really appreciate this discussion. Okay, so our last question of the night, and then we'll all head out and have dinner, or Ian can go to sleep since it's very late, is the anonymous attendee writes, are there ways someone outside academia interviewing an academic can help ensure that interviews count, or an interview counts in some ways to help when institutions go to try and measure scholars' impact?
Yeah, so like at my university, that would count. So it would be something that we would be encouraged to include in our list of what we call SRC, scholarly research and creative activities. And so, you know, it doesn't count the same way a published paper might, but it is countable so far. But yeah, in terms of helping to convince the institution to recognize it as such, I don't know. Or yeah, maybe Hannah or Ian wants to talk about that.
No, I think that's on the scholar. I think what you focus on is like having a really good conversation with them and asking them interesting questions. It's their job to figure out how to make their university take it seriously.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Ian, I think that head nod was you. Agree. Okay, cool. Great.
That was
So-
him nodding off, actually.
Yeah, that was him sort of.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for being here. This has been very fun. Thank you everyone who has attended. And for our future viewers, thank you also for watching. Thank you, Esley, for helping with the tech. Thank you to our captioner, Michelle. We have one other event coming up at the later this month around the role of fun and play as part of kind of our scholarly inquiry. And then next semester, we're also going to have an event. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. And I hope everyone has a lovely evening.
Thank you.
And may I just thank the participants for their terrific questions. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Really,
thank you.
really great discussion. Appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, everyone.